that the Democrat Party lost in 2024 for a lot of reasons, but mostly because they lost hardworking, blue-collar Americans that were once Democrats. I don't think they were able to captivate.
Absolutely. Emanuel denied the allegations via a statement through his lawyer, telling Daily Mail that his client, quote, denies each and every allegation and that the lawsuit is a blanket, scattershot, meritless.
The drama unfolded like a scene from a reality TV show, but this was no scripted entertainment. It was live, raw, and utterly explosive. Sunny Hostin, co-host of The View, decided to draw first blood in what would become one of the most talked about moments in daytime television. The stage was already set with a topic that has been divisive for decades: immigration. But instead of sticking to the talking points or engaging in a civil debate, Hostin went straight for the jugular, targeting conservative commentator Tomi Lahren with a deeply personal and frankly shocking line of attack. She brought Lahren's ancestors into the mix, accusing her family of hypocrisy for not speaking English despite their long-ago immigration to the United States.
I'd like to ask you, woman to woman, is it difficult for you to support Trump as a leader when he treats women so poorly, the things that he said about women? Remember that horrible tape, the Access Hollywood tape? I won't even repeat it, it's so gross. And not to mention the things he said about Megyn Kelly and about Alicia Machado, all that stuff against women.
Hostin's words were pointed, deliberate, and dripping with condescension. She rattled off snippets of census data as if she were presenting the ultimate gotcha moment. Lahren's great-great-grandmother, after over a decade in the US, still spoke only German. Another ancestor, after 41 years, hadn't mastered English either. The implication was clear. If your family couldn't assimilate, what gives you the right to demand it of others? For Hostin, this was supposed to be the mic drop moment, the slam dunk that would expose Lahren as a hypocrite on national television. And for a brief, fleeting second, she might have thought she nailed it.
Said it couldn't be done. He said you cannot secure the border without the bipartisan border bill. Well, I guess that was a lie, just like everything else they fed to us during those 4 years where we essentially had a vegetable in office. It can be done. President Trump has managed to do it in less than 3 months. When you had border crossings, thousands a day, and now you're down to about a handful of gotaways, if that, I think this is an incredible success.
But Lahren didn't flinch. Not a muscle in her face moved. She didn't stutter, didn't raise her voice, and didn't give Hostin the emotional reaction she was likely hoping for. Instead, Lahren did what she does best. She flipped the narrative, with the kind of icy calm that only someone used to media firestorms could muster. She reminded everyone watching that her family came to America legally, followed the rules, worked hard, and didn't rely on government assistance. Her ancestors, she argued, may not have spoken English, but they built lives and futures without handouts. It was a stark contrast to the modern immigration debate, as Lahren framed it, where illegal crossings and demands for resources dominate the discourse.
What do you think of the president's trade policy?
Listen, this is the art of the deal at its best, and I understand that there was some volatility on Wall Street, and that's understandable, and I don't ever want to downplay anybody's concerns when it comes to their finances, their 401k, their retirement. I completely understand the anxiety there, but what President Trump has said, and I believe, is this is less about Wall Street and more about Main Street.
The audience was left in stunned silence, unsure whether to clap for Lahren's rebuttal or gasp at the sheer audacity of Hostin's attack. But the real fallout was happening off camera. Within minutes, social media erupted into chaos, with clips of the exchange spreading like wildfire and hashtags trending almost instantly. On one side, Hostin's supporters praised her for exposing Lahren, calling it a long overdue reckoning for a woman they see as the face of uncompromising conservatism. On the other side, Lahren's defenders accused Hostin of low-blow tactics, drudging up ancient family history to score cheap political points. And then there were the accusations of hypocrisy. Critics quickly pointed out that Hostin herself had benefited from the kind of privilege she often condemns: a Yale-educated lawyer turned TV personality whose rise to fame had been built on a combination of intellect, opportunity, and her ability to resonate with a liberal audience. But did that make her immune to the same scrutiny she was applying to Lahren? The optics were damning. Hostin, a woman who routinely champions compassion and understanding, was now being accused of weaponizing someone's ancestry for a soundbite.
And I've been criticizing them for 8 years for doing it, pointing out that it's not the job of the media to take sides.
The backlash wasn't just confined to Twitter and Instagram. Prominent voices in the media and political world weighed in, adding fuel to the already growing fire. Greg Gutfeld, Fox News' resident provocateur, took to his platform to transform the entire debacle into a comedy roast. He mocked Hostin's deep dive into Laren's genealogy, comparing it to a desperate high schooler trying to win a debate by Googling their opponent's family tree. If Sunny wants to play family detective, Gutfeld quipped, she might want to make sure her own branches don't have any skeletons rattling around. The comment was both a jab and a warning, a not-so-subtle hint that Hostin's own past might not withstand the kind of scrutiny she had just unleashed on Lahren. But Hostin wasn't backing down. The following day, she doubled down on her comments during an interview, framing her remarks as a broader critique of conservative hypocrisy. It's not about Tomi Lahren's great-great-grandmother, she argued. It's about the principle. If you're going to demand assimilation and merit-based immigration, you'd better make sure your own family history aligns with those values. Her supporters applauded the statement, calling it a bold stand against what they perceive as Lahren's selective outrage. Still, the damage was done. For many, Hostin's attempt to turn a policy debate into a personal attack crossed a line. The incident became a symbol of everything people hate about modern political discourse. The pettiness, the performative outrage, the inability to argue on the merits without dragging personal lives into the fray. And while The View has never been a bastion of calm, reasoned debate, this particular clash felt different. It was nastier, more visceral, and left even longtime viewers questioning whether the show had finally gone too far.
I started out at One America News with an 80-something-year-old male boss who called me a bimbo pretty freely. That was a different experience. I went to The Blaze and I worked for Glenn Beck, who I had to end up getting in a lawsuit with because he tried to fire me for saying I was pro-choice when I went on The View. So it's been a different experience at those other networks. There's a lot that I've been through there. Fox, to me, is a completely different.
And then there were the racial undertones. Hostin's comments about Lahren's European ancestors not speaking English struck a nerve with many who felt that the attack reeked of a double standard. Would Hostin have made the same remarks if Lahren's family had come from a non-European country? Critics accused her of using race and ethnicity as a weapon, turning what should have been a policy discussion into a cultural battleground. The irony, of course, was that Hostin often champions diversity and inclusion. Yet here she was, seemingly undermining those very principles by using someone's heritage against them.
But what are they out there for? I can't really figure it out when we're talking about the Democrat message just as a whole. I know that they hate Donald Trump. I know they hate Elon Musk. I know they hate Doge. Yeah. I know they hate deporting illegal aliens. I know they want men and women's sports. I know that they don't want parents to have control over the pronouns used.
I don't think they want men and women's sports, but
Democrats don't want that?
The incident also highlighted the stark divide between the two women's political philosophies. Lahren, the unapologetic conservative firebrand, has built her career on being polarizing. She thrives on controversy, using it to amplify her platform and galvanize her fan base. Hostin, on the other hand, has positioned herself as a voice of reason and compassion, a champion of social justice who isn't afraid to call out hypocrisy. But in this instance, the roles seemed reversed. Lahren came across as measured and composed, while Hostin appeared aggressive and, to some, mean-spirited. And the fans, they were picking sides with a vengeance. Lahren's supporters flooded social media with memes and posts declaring her the queen of comebacks. Hostin's defenders, meanwhile, rallied around her, insisting that she had only said what everyone else was thinking. The divide was stark and unyielding, a microcosm of the larger cultural and political rift tearing through the country.
Adds to any movement that they're trying to build.
It's something, okay? This party is literally like in the ashes right now. Like there is nothing left of it. They have, for the past decades, 2 decades now, been in a very electing candidates through undemocratic processes.
The fallout didn't stop there. Behind the scenes, whispers began circulating about tensions on the set of The View. Was Hostin's attack planned, or was it an off-the-cuff remark that went too far? And how did the other co-hosts feel about being dragged into the ensuing media circus? Speculation mounted about whether the show's producers would address the controversy or let it fester, hoping the next news cycle would sweep it under the rug. But if there's one thing both Lahren and Hostin understand, it's that in today's media landscape, Controversies don't just fade away, they evolve. Each new headline, each tweet, each segment dissecting the incident only added layers to the story. And as the dust began to settle on the initial clash, another storm was already brewing. One that would take the conflict to a whole new level.
This is the largest RICO case ever filed in the state of New York. You guys wrap that around your brain. That's bigger than the mafia.
And just when you thought the tension between Sunny Hostin and Tomi Lahren couldn't get thicker, the universe threw in a plot twist that no one saw coming. Sunny's husband, Emmanuel Hostin, a respected orthopedic surgeon with a gleaming reputation, or so everyone thought, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. And not in the way you'd expect from the spouse of a daytime TV co-host. In an almost cinematic turn of events, law enforcement swooped in with allegations that could shake the very foundation of Sunny's carefully crafted public image. The charges, insurance fraud, and not just any fraud. This was an alleged scheme, so sprawling, so intricate, and so scandalous that it could rival the most elaborate true crime documentary.
In the documents, he knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services, including arthroscopic surgery.
The accusations painted a picture that was hard to reconcile with the polished, articulate, and self-righteous image Sunny Hostin had cultivated over the years. Emmanuel Host, according to the lawsuit filed in federal court, was allegedly involved in a massive RICO operation, a legal term that immediately conjures images of organized crime, not a Manhattan doctor in a white coat. The allegations claimed that Emmanuel Host, along with over 180 other defendants, had been performing unnecessary medical procedures, issuing dubious bills, and receiving illegal kickbacks. The goal? To exploit loopholes in New York's no-fault insurance laws, which were designed to ensure victims of vehicle accidents could access medical care without the hassle of proving fault. Instead, these laws allegedly became a goldmine for fraudulent activity. The details were almost too jarring to believe. Court documents alleged that Emmanuel Host performed surgeries on patients who had sustained minor injuries in low-impact accidents. Injuries that might have been treated with little more than physical therapy or rest. But according to prosecutors, these patients were pushed into invasive, unnecessary procedures at a surgical center that conveniently had ties to the alleged operation. And here's where things get even murkier. The lawsuit claimed that Emmanuel Host held an investment in this very same surgical center, receiving both financial benefits and a steady stream of referrals. It wasn't just about the surgeries. It was about the money trail, the intertwining relationships, and the alleged payoffs that made this whole scheme possible.
He was scamming insurance companies from taxi drivers, Uber drivers, and Lyft drivers. He was performing unnecessary surgeries and then providing fraudulent medical services in exchange.
But wait, it gets worse. As soon as the story broke, whispers started swirling that Sunny herself might not be as far removed from her husband's alleged actions as she'd like people to believe. Critics were quick to point out her public statements about her husband's work, where she'd often praised his dedication to serving his patients, even in cases where insurance companies allegedly failed to pay him fairly. Was this just a devoted wife defending her husband's noble intentions, or had Sunny been subtly laying the groundwork for a defense all along? And if so, what did she know, and when did she know it? The timing of the allegations couldn't have been more damning. Sunny had just come off a high-profile public spat with Lahren, where she painted herself as a beacon of moral authority, a voice for justice and compassion. To have her own household now implicated in a scandal tied to greed and corruption? It was almost poetic in its irony. Lahren's supporters pounced on the opportunity, flooding social media with accusations of hypocrisy. Sunny wants to lecture America about fairness and integrity, but look what's happening in her own backyard, one tweet read. Another took it even further, suggesting that Sunny's aggressive takedown of Lahren's family history was an intentional smokescreen to divert attention from her own skeletons.
So we know Sunny Hostin and her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, are preparing for a legal battle to fight accusations that he committed federal insurance.
And then there were the rumors. Whispers that Sunny might have had some inkling of her husband's alleged activities. Legal experts began dissecting the case on cable news, speculating about the potential fallout. Could Sunny be called to testify? Was it possible she had benefited financially, even indirectly, from her husband's alleged schemes? The idea alone was enough to send tabloids and social media into overdrive. And while no official charges were leveled against Sunny herself, the court of public opinion was already deliberating, and the verdict wasn't looking good. Behind the scenes at The View, tensions were reportedly at an all-time high. Producers, were scrambling to figure out how to handle the situation. Some insiders speculated that Sunny's co-hosts were growing increasingly frustrated with the constant cloud of controversy hanging over the show. After all, this wasn't the first time. Sunny had been at the center of a firestorm. From her divisive on-air statements to her frequent clashes with co-host Alyssa Farah Griffin, Sunny seemed to be a lightning rod for drama. But this was on another level entirely. How could the show maintain its credibility when one of its most outspoken panelists was now linked, however indirectly, to such a massive scandal?
But it's just, I mean, Pat, you're married. Tom, you're married. If your husband's doing something, if he's allegedly doing something like this, you guys would know if your wives were up to.
And let's not forget the elephant in the room, the potential impact on The View itself. Rumors began circulating that network executives were quietly considering a shakeup. Would Sunny be asked to step back until the dust settled? Or would the producers double down, leaning into the controversy for the sake of ratings? After all, scandal sells. And if there's one thing The View has always thrived on, it's drama. But at what cost? The show's reputation was already under scrutiny following years of high-profile feuds and public missteps. Could it afford another scandal, especially one of this magnitude? Fans were divided. Loyal supporters of Sunny defended her fiercely, arguing that her husband's alleged actions had nothing to do with her. "She's not her husband," one commenter wrote. "Why should she be held accountable for something she had no part in?" But others weren't so forgiving. "If she knew about this and turned a blind eye, that's just as bad," another post read. The speculation was endless, and the lack of clear answers only fueled the fire.
Which, by the way, how annoying is The View getting? God, they're insufferable that lot, aren't they? Just a side effect.
The scandal also reignited conversations about the broader issue of accountability in public life. Should Sunny, as a public figure, be held to a higher standard? Or was this just another example of a woman being unfairly scrutinized for the actions of a man in her life? The debate was as polarizing as it was intense, with no clear resolution in sight. And as the legal proceedings against Emmanuel unfolded, the questions only grew louder. What would the evidence reveal, and how deep did this alleged operation really go? By now, the story had evolved into a full-blown media frenzy, with every new detail adding another layer of complexity. The narrative was no longer just about Sunny and Tomi, or even about Sunny and her husband. It was about the intersection of power, privilege, and public perception. It was about the ways in which personal and professional lives collide, creating a perfect storm of scandal and intrigue. And yet, for all the noise and speculation, one thing was clear. This was far from over. The legal battle was just beginning, and the fallout, both personal and professional, was still unfolding. Would Sunny emerge unscathed, or would the scandal leave a permanent mark on her career and reputation? And what about The View? Would the show weather yet another storm? Or was this the beginning of the end for one of daytime television's most iconic programs? So, what do you think? Is Sunny Hostin an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire? Or is there more to this story than meets the eye? And how do you think The View will handle the fallout? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the scandals that keep Hollywood and the rest of us talking. See you in the next one.